All right, quick post about cortisol, just to remind you that cortisol and this healthy rhythm shown here in reddish brown is the key to it all. Okay, maybe not the key to it all, but it's the key to much of what people are seeking in terms of daytime mood focus and alertness and improved nighttime sleep. Here's the deal. Your cortisol naturally starts to rise before you wake up. It's the reason you wake up. It eventually hits a certain level, and the cortisol awakening response, as it's called, kicks in. You wake up. You open your eyes. I drew this wake up time at about 6:30, but it doesn't really matter where it is. That's the reason you wake up. In the first hour or two, but ideally the first hour after you wake up, you can do a wonderful thing for your entire 24-hour rhythm and general health, mental health and physical health, which is to view sunlight. Take your sunglasses off, look in the direction of the sun. Eyeglasses and contacts are fine. Blink to protect your eyes as needed. View sunlight. Or if you don't have access to sunlight for whatever reason, a 10,000 lux artificial lamp. These can be found online. I don't have any relationship to any company that sells them. They're relatively inexpensive. If you do that and then the sun comes out, also get some sunlight in your eyes. Why? Because it amplifies your morning cortisol peak by up to 50%. Okay, this is obviously not 50% here. It's not drawn to scale, but up to 50%. You want your morning cortisol high because it sets you up for lower cortisol in the late afternoon and evening. And that has to do with the way that cortisol is on a negative feedback loop. So you want to spike your morning cortisol. Best way to do that, view bright light, ideally from sunlight or 10,000 lux artificial light. Caffeine has a little asterisk here. If you're a regular caffeine user, it will not increase your cortisol. I repeat, it will not increase your cortisol. But if you're not familiar with caffeine, it certainly will. By the way, you can drink your caffeine as soon as you wake up. I never said that you had to wait 60 to 90 minutes. I did say if you're somebody that tends to crash really hard in the afternoon, delay your caffeine by 60 to 90 minutes. And I think you'll be positively surprised how well that works. If that's too long, maybe even just 30 minutes, because caffeine extends the life of cortisol. Exercise of moderate to high intensity in the morning if you can. I know some people's schedules don't allow for that. Hydration, a vastly underestimated tool for increasing energy. Why? Proper hydration can increase baseline cortisol levels. So can dehydration. But drink 16 to 32 ounces of water when you wake up in the morning. You'll be positively surprised how well that impacts your energy levels. Some of it's due to direct effects of hydration on cells. A lot of it is due to effects on cortisol. Deliberate cold exposure, an asterisk. It won't spike your cortisol. If anything, it will lower your cortisol, but still it will increase epinephrine, norepinephrine, and dopamine, the so-called catecholamines. Very quickly lead to more alertness. Licorice root that contains something called glycyrrhizin. Warning, it increases blood pressure. It can extend the life of many prescription drugs. That could be a good or a bad thing, depending on what you're taking, what your doctor says. Consult your doctor. However, licorice root will also increase cortisol levels. I've been experimenting with licorice root for a few weeks now, taking about 100 milligrams. I have to actually break open a 200 milligram capsule because I couldn't find 100 milligram ones. I put in my morning yerba mate, and wow, what an incredible morning increase in energy. And as a consequence, the whole point of this is, yes, to have daytime mood focus and energy elevation, but it leads to lower levels of cortisol at night, which are required to fall and stay deeply asleep. Many of you that fall asleep easily, but then wake up 3 or 4 hours later, not just to use the restroom, which by the way is perfectly normal, that's because your cortisol rhythm is too flat. Too much cortisol in the afternoon. If you need to exercise in the evening, if you choose to do deliberate cold exposure or whatever in the evening, okay, no problem. Just do some things to lower your cortisol. I talk about that in the episode of the Huberman Lab podcast on cortisol and how to actually lower cortisol. Things like ashwagandha, yeah, they can help. I suggest people don't take more than 300 milligrams per day. And if you do take it in the afternoon. Think about it. You want your cortisol high in the early part of the day. Don't take any supplement containing more than, say, 100 milligrams of ashwagandha early in the day. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. In fact, it's counterproductive. If it has 100 milligrams or less, no big deal. But 300 milligrams or more, if you're taking that, you want to take that in the evening or before sleep. You're going to have stress events throughout the day. That's life. You're going to have little spikes in cortisol, but they come back down to baseline. I've talked a lot about stress mitigation on the podcast. What happens if you don't spike your morning cortisol is you get what's called flattening of the cortisol rhythm, of what's called the diurnal daytime cortisol rhythm. This is correlated with all sorts of negative health outcomes, including insomnia, anxiety, difficulty in recovering from not so serious as well as serious illness, probably because of the way it impacts sleep and the immune system. So spike your morning cortisol so you don't get a flattening of your cortisol response. Keep in mind that after about age 40, and especially in women with perimenopause, menopause, or in perimenopause, menopause, I should say, there's a characteristic flattening of the afternoon cortisol response. This has been well documented. So you can do some things to amplify your morning cortisol. It will help to offset that flattening. It's also true in men. Just more, it's more apparent, more exacerbated in menopause. So this is what you want. Shoot for that red curve, okay? Not a flat cortisol curve. No, you don't have to wake up at 6:30. No, you don't have to go to sleep at whatever, between 9 and 11. I tend to go to sleep around 10 or 10:30, but that's just me. Do what you do. If you wake up at 10, if you wake up at 5, if you wake up at 4, this whole thing just shifts. The specific numbers aren't important. It's the general contour of these curves. All right, there's a lot here. There's a lot more in the episode that I did about cortisol and your health. Keep in mind, cortisol, yes, is deployed in response to stress, but it's gotten a bad rap. Listen, unless you have Addison's or Cushing's, which are related to severe alterations in cortisol levels, you can work with and control your cortisol levels in healthy ways. And if you have Addison's or Cushing's, you should definitely talk to an endocrinologist, talk to your physician. Again, I'll caution you about glycyrrhizin. If you're going to use licorice root glycyrrhizin, be very mindful to use it early in the day, and it is contraindicated with a number of other things. One other thing. Grapefruit can extend the duration of this cortisol peak. So if you like grapefruit, eat a grapefruit in the morning and drink some grapefruit juice if that's within your nutritional plan. All right, folks, put any questions you have in the comments section below this post and go for that healthy cortisol rhythm for a few days in a row, and you will be positively, surprised at how much daytime mood, focus, and alertness and your sleep improve, and as a consequence, immune system function, and on and on and on. A lot cascades down from cortisol because getting your cortisol rhythm is the key to it all. Thanks for your interest in science.